Hi, this is Rielly from Mystic Taxi. I'm a feng shui practitioner and decorator in Kingston, Ontario. This is a mystical feng shui reading of the beautiful Amadeus Cafe, which is now for sale in Downtown Kingston at 170 Princess Street. Ooh la la! Owners are retiring and seeking a new buyer and leaseholder. This restaurant has a capacity of 82 people in the winter and 132 people in the summertime. This property has one of the most beautiful patios in Kingston, a hidden patio. This property is being sold through a specialty boutique real estate brokerage called Carve, which apparently represents cute restaurants and is owned and operated by Rielly. The Amadeus Cafe is a German restaurant that has been in business for 30 years, so I thought I would do a video to talk about this very interesting space in the hopes of getting the word out and celebrating the possibilities of this very interesting property. The great thing about this space, and I think the reason for its longevity and success, is that the feng shui is almost perfect. It's almost perfect, and I almost have nothing to say about the feng shui except for how perfect it is. I'm sure that whoever becomes the new management for Amadeus is going to make use of the long-standing reputation that has been established in the community, its decades of amazing food, and the very warm relationship that it has with its customers. And I hope for the best for this sale and the transfer of ownership, and I hope it's comfortable and fruitful for everyone. This is a brick and stone building, and most of the furnishings and decor on the inside of this property are wood of different colors, including the floors, the tables, and the chairs. This property intends to have a fire signature, which is wonderful. It's a very versatile element, and it's such a treat to have a fire signature. Inside, the owners and managers of this business have aligned their business very closely with wood and earth for the most part, which is a most advantageous and stable choice for a fire profile. The combination of fire and wood and earth, with an emphasis on wood, conjures an atmosphere of sustainability in business and a reassuring feeling to one's customers of longevity and stability. There's a lot of authenticity here. I said that wood and fire together create this feeling of stability and that things are operational and growing organically. There is something else that the fire profile requires, and that is a story. If there is no story, there is no business. And you can set up the most perfect feng shui, but it has to be a container for something that's dynamic and interesting. And what they have here is the German restaurant. They have the couple. They have decor from Germany. They have menu items from Europe. They have a clientele that is interested in Europe. Maybe they've been to Europe. So there's a signature, something going on here that is story-based, and it's storytelling, and it has content. If you don't have content in a fire space, then you do not have a reason for your customers to be interested in you. And the fact that they've decorated the place with all kinds of little mementos and souvenirs from Germany is part of the story of the space. So, this can be brought about by music. It can be brought about by an atmosphere. It doesn't have to be an explicit story. It has to have the excitement of developing and something to talk about, kind of like news. Important, especially for a space like this. Some places, like if it was a pure water space, it just has to be really good at what it does, and it will sustain itself, and the power of the mastery that's going on sustains the building for the most part. But fire spaces are a little bit different. If you take a fire space and you take all the authenticity out of it, it becomes less and less interesting. If you make a fire space the same as every other space, you take all the quirks out of it and you polish it up and you make it. The danger is that you're going to erase what's interesting about it. Obviously, nobody knows whether or not the new owners are going to continue the Amadeus Cafe and continue running the restaurant exactly the way it is, or if they're going to try something new. If they are keeping the Amadeus Cafe,
I'd say what's been working for 30 years is probably a good thing to start with. Organic changes and things are probably inevitable. If they're going to start something new of their own, it's a good idea for them to think about why the Amadeus Cafe was popular for so long. Take the lesson from that, if you're really who you say you are, and if you have a story, there's real taste and sight and sound behind it that confirms your story, the consistency is really irresistible to an audience. So that's a good thing to keep in mind for the new ownership, whomever they may be, and whatever they may be up to.
This kind of property has a very, very strong potential for high visibility and a big reputation. It's not out of the question for a business with a fire signature this strong to become known beyond their city, nationally and internationally if they should wish. This breadth of reputation is something the management may not have consciously explored due to the fact that running a restaurant takes a lot of work. This kind of high profile could be useful in a change of ownership and could likely be arranged with a little bit of effort in the way of storytelling, some flashy website design, video documenting outreach, and some well-placed seasonal event announcements aligned with tourism listings, social media, and perhaps connection with the sister businesses in other places or around town, especially to do with festivals and things. I don't really have any criticisms of what's going on with the feng shui because it's all been working for about 30 years now. I'm just going to be playing around here with some things that are pretty optional just in case someone is looking for a little change up to the space, for example, upon a change of ownership. Although, as I said before, what's been working for 30 years is a very good thing to bet on. Okay, so I'm starting with the facade of the building, and what is desirable here is something well lit and relating to the fire element, and that's just definitely what we see here. This lovely brown facade with swirls of plaster evoking earth and wood, with uplights over the side. There's a platform to the right of this picture where during open hours sits a little wooden Bavarian man who is kind of a mascot for the restaurant. I'm always of the opinion that you should invite your customers into a business 3 times with signage and with music, perhaps a welcome mat, maybe a menu on the outside. This priceless little wooden man does a great deal of inviting. He's worth the money that the owners paid for him, I'm sure 1,000 times over by now. There are lots of different ways to relate to the fire element. The best ways always involve wood. Fire in the presence of wood makes an interesting statement in itself, but for a business where you want a stable income, wood and fire sends out a signal that your business is sustainable. What's interesting about this business is that they've activated the fire element almost entirely using a wood and earth profile. The facade of this business is really great and in sync with the fire element through earth, warm earthy color in the spectrum of natural and neutral colors that have been chosen repeatedly throughout this building, and it's pretty classic in its well-lit storefront. If there's ever a feeling that the space could be fresher, this storefront and some of the front of business on the inside could be aligned both with the fire element and the water element, which would be a good wealth attracting measure. Water tends to freshen things up a bit and make them more clear and modern. So if the storefront needs to attract fire with customers, the storefront could also retain some qualities of a water space. This is a very delicate balance to achieve. Everything that is in the storefront is supporting a fire element, a yin fire element. So there's a lot of earthiness, and it feels like a little bit mountainous, a little bit like earth itself. If you felt you needed to freshen up things with water, there are a few things that you could do. The main thing that is blocking water from flowing here is an abundance of earth. If there was a 100% wooden facade, it would serve both the fire and water elements. So I'm going to show a almost 100% wooden facade on this building just for the sake of argument and fun.
This is a little Bavarian fantasy. I like it. I'm not suggesting someone reproduce this. I'm just saying that if you have a 100% wooden storefront, it relates to the water element, relates to the fire element. And that's a very good way of opening up this space, even if it's not this particular design. This is an example. Even if you had a little more wood, it would be okay. Maybe some plants to the existing storefront. I think that would be an improvement.
There's a lot of wood. There's the presence of plants, which I think probably is the one thing that is missing from the storefront as it is now. The more green and wooden things are included on the facade, the better it is for the water to flow, which would translate into a smoother functioning business and more wealth. Since wood tames stone, also known as yang earth, you could use the wood just to help the water element to thrive in the presence of any storefront that was close to a sidewalk and so on. You can't add water directly to this scheme because if you did, you'd extinguish the fire element, which you don't want to do. Anyway, there's another way to free up water if you were thinking of the shape of the facade, and that is to scrape off the plaster and the paint and sand it down until you hit the wall and make it nice and smooth and paint it white. When you remove that textured feeling, you get a more essentialized shape, and you would be inviting the water element in a little bit more because the water element is kind of a minimalist idea. The facade, I think, is really nice. Maybe some plants under the window would be a nice touch that would invite the water element in an indirect way. So, as we enter this space, the customers are looking for fire as they enter. To the people who are working inside the property, a strong water space is going to be important in most cases for creating wealth. In this case, there's a lot of wood in this building. A lot of wood in the front, so anything that is expressing an earth element, such as the plaster design on the walls, is going to be sort of tempered by the wood. So there's no danger in keeping everything exactly the way it is. But if you wanted to freshen things up a bit and create more light in the space, you could scrape the plaster down off some of the walls. I wouldn't recommend taking the plaster off of every wall, but maybe just the ones in the front window and as you're coming in along the right of the room, just to bounce the light around a little bit more. Here is a representation of taking the plaster off the walls and the kind of effect that has. Something that's really important for this room is the lighting. Some of the measures to make it a little bit of a sleeker space and give it the qualities that a water space would have a little bit is going to improve the lighting in the room a little bit and brighten it up. And it's important that this be a bright space just because it's a fire space, and that's what people expect when they walk into a fire space is a lot of light. You could lighten up anything that you see here. Probably you could lighten up the floors, but that's not super important because it's still fine. It's fine for a fire space to have wood in it, even if it's dark wood. If you're feeling that the space is a bit dark, you could do a few things to bounce the light around a little bit better and to improve the quality of the light bulbs and things like that. That's what I've done here. The removal of the plaster on a couple of the walls creates a nice streamlining and the difference between the two sides of the room, which is nice, a little diversity. As I said, it's hard to find things in this room to improve upon. What you want in this room anyway is a lot of light. You would increase the fire a little bit. I thought the kitchen could use a little bit of something, so I put some color on the floor in the kitchen using a marmoleum. The first marmoleum color I used is curcumin, and this is a beautiful little color. And the second color that I tried is called rose. These are nice, strong, cheerful colors. I don't work for Forbo, who sells marmoleum, but I probably should because I love this product so much. It's a natural product that's perfect for industrial kitchens, and it's nice to walk on. For the people who are working in the space, it's a little easier on your back and your feet. You could also do a ceramic tile floor in this kitchen very easily. I had no criticism at all about the patio. It's absolutely beautiful, and I would recommend to everyone, while the weather is nice, to take a turn on the patio. It's so beautiful. The dining room is the space where I really allowed myself to be creative, because I could see that although this room is beautiful, as all the rooms are, there's a little bit of something that I could have done in this space, because this is a yin earth space, not a fire space. So I decided to experiment and put as much stone and metal in this place as I could. So I put a stamped copper ceiling and some metal decals on the wall. I also put a stone feature wall on the right side of the picture. So you can see there are some options here, creating a little more focus with some metal elements and stone elements. And as I said, everything works fine. All you're doing, if you leave the space the way it is that you're creating more of a fire area, and that's something that's completely doable. I might have gone a little crazy in this room with pewter plates, but I really wanted to see how far I could go with a metallic and stone aesthetic before it became kind of unbearable. And even now, I don't think it's unbearable. I think it's a little bit busy, but it doesn't look like it, but it has a lot of room for stone and metal. Anyway, as I said, the feng shui of this property is out of this world great. It's hard to find improvements to make to it. The longevity of the business is a testament to its feng shui. I very much encourage you to check out the Amadeus Cafe, to visit while the weather is nice. I recommend the Crepes Mozart, which has been on the menu since I was in my late teens at least. It's nice to anticipate another, I hope the perfect buyer and restaurant owner come to take over this legendary Kingston eatery. I hope for the best for everyone involved, and I'm so glad I did a reading for this space, if only to appreciate the space a little and send it a little bit of love and celebrate the ownership, which has been so wonderful all this time. If you're seeking a feng shui assessment of a property, please contact me. I do on-demand readings for $100. I also accept barter and trade. In the case that you are in need of my services, you will not be turned away.